Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is not 5 o'clock on a Monday, but this is still WRAL Triangle and Two. I'm Luis Fernandez. He's Mark Bergin. Mark, we were joking, hey, maybe next week we'll have to do an emergency pod with NFL free agency and everything like that. Well, the NFL is a 365-day league, and the Carolina Panthers proved that to us today. Massive trade for the Panthers, for the NFL. Mark, you've got the details in front of you. Why don't you let us hear it?
All right. The Panthers have a decision to make, Lewis, because really there's 4 possibilities, 5 if the Panthers were to trade back. Now that they have the number 1 overall pick from the Bears, here's what they need to decide. You got four choices at the quarterback position. CJ Stroud out of Ohio State, Bryce Young out of Alabama, Florida's Anthony Richardson, Will Levis out of Kentucky. You're going to have to pick one. We talked about it on our last Triangle and Two episode. But Lewis, where the Panthers were at number 9, there was a strong possibility that none of those 4 stud quarterbacks was going to be there at 9. That's
0.
why you trade up and pay a king's ransom to the Bears to get the first overall pick. Now what I'm excited to see is who is the quarterback that the Panthers are targeting, to where they had to go all the way to number 1 and give up everything that they did in this blockbuster deal that broke today.
It's a lot, and it is a lot that they traded. Do you have the trade details in front of you?
Yes. Let me go through that really quickly. So the Panthers get the first overall pick. In exchange, the Bears get the 9th overall pick. That's a first-round pick. They'll get the 61st pick as well. The Bears will get a first-round pick and a second-round pick, and they get a receiver, DJ Moore, as well. And Lewis, this is a very weak free agent wide receiver class. So the Bears needed to get another target for Justin Fields, because you get Chase Claypool in a trade with the a trade with the Steelers in the middle of last season. Darnell Mooney's a decent receiver, but you get Fields another target. Fields has got 2 more years left on his rookie contract. So the Bears are going to see, is he truly the guy? And they're finally starting to get pieces that they'll be able to surround him with to have success. From the Panther standpoint, though, let me focus on this, Lewis. Post-Cam Newton era, the Panthers have been looking for a guy. Didn't work out with Teddy Bridgewater. Next offseason, you bring in Sam Darnold. Didn't work out with him. Oh, let's get Baker Mayfield for 10 cents on the dollar. Let's make the Browns pay his contract. I mentioned this on the last show, Lewis. The Panthers last season allocated the 10th most amount of money to the quarterback position of any team in the league. You started Mayfield, Darnold, and PJ Walker last year. The Panthers did not get the 10th best production at the quarterback position. That's why when you bring in new head coach Frank Reich, you're going to get him a young rookie quarterback from the jump to develop from day one now with this trade.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think too, it's about the big picture with the Panthers, right? I've seen some people a little bit frustrated by this trade, say, oh, the Panthers gave up so much. And don't get me wrong, losing DJ Moore, that hurts. DJ Moore is a very talented receiver, a true X receiver who is going to be able to line up on the outside and win you one-on-one matchups. So that is hard. But in this league, you are either you have a quarterback or you don't have a quarterback. There is no in between. The only way it works if you're in between, if you're like the 49ers and you've got Kyle Shanahan, who's just like an offensive wizard. If you do not have the guy, then you are in trouble. And, you look at this class, I don't think it's as strong as next year's class, but the Panthers, they can't tank. Like, it is so much harder to tank in the NFL than it is in like the NBA or something. And if you have the first pick or the second pick in the NFL draft next year, you're going to pick Caleb Williams or you're going to pick Drake May. You're not going to trade those away. And if you do, you're trading it for picks upon picks upon picks. I think it's smart to capitalize when you have the opportunity now for the Panthers, especially because there are some, good quarterbacks in this draft that I think at the very least are going to give them an opportunity to have the most success they've had since those, 2015, 2016 Cam Newton prime years. They have a good team. But now the question, of course, will be, A, who do they pick? And B, what do they surround them with? Because that is the one thing losing DJ Moore does. Kind of puts you in a tricky situation when it comes to weapons for a quarterback to use on offense.
With the quarterback, though, Lewis, it greatly hamstrings your ability to win in the NFL if you don't have a stud signal caller. And that's evident for the premium that you see Derek Carr get. You see the massive extension signed by Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. Quarterbacks who are good, I would not consider them elite or great quarterbacks, but there's a reason, because there's a premium in this league. And if you're going to get a true blue chip quarterback who can make a difference, I'm going to make it a baseball analogy here for you, Lewis. You can't knock one out of the park if you don't swing for the fences. And you had to make a move here if you're the Panthers, because you couldn't risk being at number 9 and not being able to move up in this draft to get one of the 4 and go into next season expect to have success. It's that simple.
I just think it would be too you don't want your franchise to just keep kicking the can down the road, especially when it would require being one of the 2 worst teams in the NFL next year. And with what we see of the NFC South, if the Panthers improve slightly, they're not going to be struggling in the division to get wins or something like that. It would be hard for them to get Caleb Williams or Drake May. If you can guarantee you're going to get those 2 next year, yeah, for sure. Pass on this one, say we're good, we'll go get the next guy. But I think there are a lot of opportunities here for them to do that, especially when you look at the grand scheme of the NFL, right? The AFC loaded with quarterbacks. You just go division by division, and it feels like, 6 of the top 7 guys are all in the AFC. What do you have in the NFC? Jalen Hurts is very good, sure. Dak Prescott, pretty solid. Okay. Look at the NFC South. Tom Brady left. Derek Carr is probably going to be a starter. And then who else do you have? You know what I mean? You look at the NFC West. Kyler Murray just tore his ACL. Will Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy? What's going to happen with the 49ers? Rams, what's going on with Matt Stafford's health? Like, Aaron Rodgers maybe going into the AFC. There is so much room to find success in the NFC. I love this move by the Panthers. I think this is smart. I think this is deliberate. I think they know exactly who they're going to get with that number 1 pick already.
Lewis, I'll take this a step further, and I'll say this for you. In comparison, the AFC quarterbacks to the NFC quarterbacks, one is a gauntlet and another is a desolate wasteland.
Yes.
And I'll let you figure out the 2, because, and it's the simple way to do it, but in the postseason, it's a lot of times it's which team has the better quarterback.
Yep.
If you're truly going to win in the league. And I'm with you there too. I think the Panthers already know who it's going to be. I think that the biggest swing would be Anthony Richardson.
Well, let me ask you.
Okay.
If I said, "Hey, Mark, you just traveled from the future. You were there on the first pick of the NFL draft this year. Who do the Panthers get? What's your choice?"
I hate to side with you, because on our last show you were mentioning CJ Stroud, and I think it makes all the sense in the world. But I think Stroud and Richardson would make the most sense. And this is no knock on Bryce Young, but it's, if you're not going to have pieces around him and you're not able to protect him, he's an undersized quarterback. There's no way around that in terms of his height and weight. Protecting a young quarterback and putting a player in a position to succeed. I think Stroud would probably be most pro ready, like you said. I said this on our last show. I took some flack for it in the comments, and it's fine. I mentioned Levis, and this is when the Panthers had the 9th pick, because at that point at 9, you maybe had a chance at Levis, maybe had a chance at Richardson. Stroud and Young are going to be gone by that point, Lewis. But Levis, I'm telling you, if he goes to the right system, he could very well be like a Justin Herbert, where Justin Herbert was coming into the league, wasn't talked about. And then once you saw it on tape and once you saw him out there making all these crazy throws, if he goes to the right system. But I think it's going to be Stroud or Richardson. If it was Bryce Young, I would be surprised, Lewis. I'll just put it that way. Just given we're probably going to make more of his size than we need to. I know the rules have changed. And you could say, well, what about Russell Wilson? What about Kyler Murray, Drew Brees? Those guys are the exception, not the norm when it comes to when it comes to undersized quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah, I think if you're going to get the number 1 pick in the draft, not just, okay, you were bad a year and you got the pick. If you are going to trade up and give up that many picks for the number 1 pick, which I will say, I do think that picks are overvalued to an extent. So I have no problem giving up picks if there's a guy you want to get. But you have to go with someone who you think is that right combination of potential and not a guarantee, because there are no guarantees in this league. We see top 10 picks flame out all the time, but you need someone who you feel confident about. And if you have questions about Bryce Young's size, about arm strength, whatever it might be, okay, I understand that. And I get that. And that's why I do think it's going to be CJ Stroud.
Okay.
And when you look at the size, when you look at the capabilities, what he can do, I mean, he went up there against Georgia in the, college football playoffs. Georgia, who absolutely crushed TCU in the national championship game. Georgia, who back-to-back national champions, one of the best defenses you'll ever see, threw for 348 yards, completed 67% of his passes, had 4 touchdowns. Like, from a pure pocket passer perspective, he's the best pure pocket passer in this draft. And I think that it's kind of like the framework that someone like Frank Reich is going to just, salivate over.
Lewis, let's give you the keys to the Cadillac for a second. Is that the decision you would make if the Panthers came to you and said, "Hey, who should we take number 1 overall?" Would it be Stroud?
Yep, I am writing down that name already. I think CJ Stroud's your guy. No, I mean, like, for real. And here's what I was a little behind the scenes before we got started. Mark, I was telling you I was watching a video really quick before we got here. There's the Underdog Network, Underdog Podcast Network. Josh Norris, he had this show last year. It was called Scheme, I believe, and he hosted it with Josh McCown, the current quarterbacks coach for the Panthers. Mm-hmm. And they did an episode breaking down CJ Stroud. He absolutely loved CJ Stroud and what he brought to the table.
You're already finding the connections, Lewis. And Josh, that was he had a lot of NFL experience as well in the league as a quarterback in his own right, not just as a coach.
Exactly. Well, and what he said in this specific podcast was that physically, CJ Stroud reminded him a lot of Joe Burrow in terms of his distribution ability, his physical size, his arm strength. Not the top tier Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen arm, but can still make almost every throw you need him to. The ability to layer passes, the ability to read defenses, move off of that first read, get the guy, get the ball to the next guy. And what he said at the very end was, he's like, I know a lot of people are putting Bryce Young at the top of their leaderboard right now, but it would not surprise me if CJ Stroud closes that gap before the start of the NFL draft.
Any possibility that the Panthers would consider trading back now that they have number 1 and going full Draft Day, the great movie, the cult classic with Kevin Costner?
Negative. No, there's no way. At this point, I think it's, you get up there, you make this trade because you know who you're going to get. Like, you know.
I'm with you there. But we know when this gets it further into the news cycle, Lewis, when we get closer and closer to April the 27th, it's going to be like, oh, should they do it because of all the possibilities that are out there? Now, I'll say this, though, too. And if you think the Panthers gave up too much, again, think about it from number 9. From number 9, you weren't going to get one of the 4 studs. And then, Lewis, we've talked about this off the air when we're in the WRAL newsroom, where it's like, are we now on Carson Wentz watch? Are we now on Jimmy G watch? Please. Before Derek Carr was going to go to the Saints, he was another possibility for the Saints. Before he went to the Saints, he was another possibility for the Panthers. And it's like time and time and time again, the Panthers have tried to do the same thing post Cam Newton. Again, with Bridgewater, with Darnold, with Mayfield. The fact that PJ Walker actually looked, I would argue, most competent at times. He was either him or Darnold this past season. Again, when the Panthers traded for Mayfield, and I don't fault the Panthers from doing that a year ago, it was, if you look at that one individual move, Cleveland paid most of Mayfield's salary. And it's like, oh, wow, well, maybe you find a diamond in the rough. But then when you look again at the salary cap allocation overall for the Panthers, ranked 10th in the NFL last season, and you didn't have the 10th best quarterback play in the league. It's that simple because of the ransom that you gave up to sign Bridgewater, to sign Darnold, to bring in all these other players. Corral got hurt. He was a draft pick a year ago too. So you've got Matt Corral and Jacob Eason are your 2 quarterbacks that are currently under contract right now. Clearly, the Panthers are going to use this first overall pick on a quarterback too. So it's like, if you hear any fodder of like, well, should they go after one of the defensive studs? It's like, no, it's going to be a quarterback, no doubt in my mind.
Well, and I think what's important too is the timing of this. It's March, as we were recording this, it's March 10th. And free agency starts in less than a week. So now you go into free agency knowing, hey, we're going to get a rookie quarterback on their rookie deal. We can focus on other positions. It's the same reason why I think the Bears decided to make this trade already. They know, okay, we got DJ Moore, we got a few more picks out there. Now we can focus on shoring up the offensive line for Justin Fields. I mean, I know this isn't a Bears podcast, but that Bears offense is looking kind of nice. If they can get an offensive line that like is legit, ooh, that's, you know, I really like what the Bears are doing. But regardless, besides the point, I think that now the Panthers can really dive in and focus with the hope that they know who the face of their franchise is going to be. My only hesitations right now with CJ Stroud are we didn't see a whole lot of out of pocket mobility in terms of running the ball. You know, he's not exactly like, you know, 30 some odd year old Matt Ryan in the pocket, but he wasn't, you know, as mobile as maybe some guys you might like. But what he is able to do is he's able to move well within the pocket. He has a lot of his mobility is well suited for someone who is a distributor of the football, who gets the ball to the places that needs to be, number one. And then there has been some lack of major success with Ohio State quarterbacks in recent years. Justin Fields obviously has had a good season last year, but was hurt, has had some struggle passing. You know, his rookie year was a little bit up and down. You know, the most successful quarterback, I think, from Ohio State in recent memory is Joe Burrow, you know, who is a transfer and only there for a little bit. And then, of course, just a sheer amount of talent that you work with at Ohio State. Look at the receivers he had a chance to throw to over these past couple of years. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., who's probably going to be like a top 3 pick when he leaves next year. That would be my only hang up about CJ Stroud. But in my mind, sign, seal, delivered, get CJ Stroud a number. What was he in college? Was he like number 7 or something like that in college?
Yes, sir.
Who's got the number 7 jersey? Let's go ahead and get that traded out.
Well, Lewis, let me take this a step further too. Let's look at the division. Right now, Kyle Trask is going to be the starter for the Buccaneers. I don't think that will stick, but okay. Derek Carr's probably the best starter in the division. Okay, he's above average to good when he's at his best. He didn't have a very good season this past year. And then the Falcons have a huge question mark because Marcus Mariota is not going to be back. So there's a huge void in the NFC South. If you can even be 500, which you were this past season, you could potentially get into the playoffs again because this was a very weak division this past year. So there's not going to, like, to me, this is a power play of not just, we were talking earlier about the dynamics between the AFC and NFC quarterbacks. Well, look at the quarterbacks within the NFC South division overall, the teams that you have to play twice a year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal whenever you draft a rookie quarterback is to have them get as ready as soon as possible, step in and kind of fall into that prototypical rookie quarterback situation that we've seen success with. The Matt Ryan's his rookie year, the Ben Roethlisberger his rookie year. You know, Peyton threw a lot of interceptions his rookie year, but you know, someone like Tom Brady coming in very early on in his career, someone who can, you know, make the offense tick, learn, grow, and then have a defense that can support them in the process. And you know, I think the Panthers are now in a prime position to be able to do that. And I don't know if I were a Panthers fan, I would be very, very excited right now. I would much rather my team take some risks and go up and try and do something that is going to ultimately knock you out of NFL purgatory. Because if you got that guy, congratulations, you're going to be a good team for the next 15 years.
Yeah, and the rest of the stuff doesn't matter to where this upcoming season, let's be honest, it's not like the Panthers were going to compete for a Super Bowl anyways. So if you get a guy like a Joe Burrow, I mean, that's probably the classic case scenario of a number 1 pick of someone who completely transformed a Bengals franchise that was really desolate in the post Carson Palmer, Chad Ochocinco, Hushmanzada high-flying offense years. You know, Andy Dalton salvaged that a little bit, but what one blue chip true difference maker at a quarterback position, all the difference that makes, because then it's just, and you know it when you see it in the NFL, and sometimes it's not there right away. Joe Burrow got hurt his rookie year, but he came back his second year and then takes his team to the Super Bowl, had the Bengals in the playoffs again. So it's like that to me is like, whoever the Panthers end up drafting, that's the potential of the stakes that you're talking about. Purgatory was the perfect word to use right there, Lewis, of where the Panthers were stuck. Because again, we said this right from the jump of this recording. If you don't have a true difference maker at the quarterback position, it greatly limits your ability, not just to win, but to contend and to hoist Lombardi trophies, which is what every team's trying to do come season's end.
If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. It's kind of how I look at it. I think the Panthers have proven that they want to get better. And just kind of looking at the back of the Panthers draft history, by the way, right? You've got with picks this high in the draft, they picked Julius Peppers, pick number 2 in 2002, future Hall of Famer, as far as I'm concerned. They had the number 1 pick when they went to an expansion, when they were the expansion team. They traded it to the Bengals, actually, dropped back and got Kerry Collins, pick 4 in the first round. They have a history of hitting with these top end first round picks. Cam Newton in 2011, obviously he was pick number 1. Not that was exactly a difficult pick. Luke Kuechly was a top 10 pick. So the Panthers have shown Christian McCaffrey, top 10 pick. I'm just scrolling through their draft history here. The Panthers have shown the ability to pick well when they have a top end draft pick. So it's March 10th. I'll go down as saying I think it's CJ Stroud, just straight up.
All right, listen, and I'm going to have to make the case for Richardson, and the more and more you see of him, where it's just like that to me would be, he's more of the true development. And I'll say this too, if you did draft Anthony Richardson, you'd probably need to bring someone in as like a bridge quarterback to like start the season, show him the ropes of what it takes to be a pro, because he's the type of prospect, and this might not be popular to hear when you have a first round draft pick, but not every rookie is designed to come in right away and start from week 1. The Panthers are likely going to need that, which is why I'm kind of siding with you a little bit here, Lewis, that CJ Stroud will likely be the guy. Not every stud quarterback starts week 1 right away. Patrick Mahomes didn't start. Tom Brady, obviously, is a 6th round pick. Roethlisberger back in the day. You had the flip side of that where you see, the Joe Burrows, the Peyton Mannings of the world. Each quarterback's a little bit different. Panthers are likely going to need whoever they draft first overall to come in and start day 1. And if that's the case, I do think Stroud will be the guy. And I am with you too. I think the Panthers know at this moment in time right now who it is that they want. I have no doubt in my mind about that.
You better. You don't trade up this. We don't trade up this high to the number 1 pick in the draft and be like, I think it's gonna be one of these guys.
Well, then that's the thing too, is to trade up to number 1 specifically as well, because they could have traded up. Like, for example, right? Houston has 2 first round draft picks. What are they picking at? 2 or 3?
2.
At number 2. So they don't want to risk anyone else getting who they now have the opportunity to draft at number 1 overall. And what crazy news on a Friday, Lewis. It's just, as soon as you saw, it's like, we have to do an emergency pod, episode number 2. We have to get it out there for our listeners and viewers.
Yep. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about this coming up. But for everyone who has been watching, thank you so much for watching. I'm Luis Fernandez. He's Mark Bergin. WRAL Triangle and Two. We'll have another episode on Monday at 5 p.m. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts or watch it on the 99.9 The Fan YouTube page. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.